Hi, welcome to this episode of The Dish. I'm Colin Covington, this is my partner Kyle. On today's episode, we will be discussing the NFC East, specifically the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants.
We're going to start off with the overview of last season. So, what is your opinion on the last season for the Philadelphia Eagles?
I think that last year, as a pivotal growing point in the future of the Eagles, that it was a good progress towards the future. Carson Wentz showed areas in which he needs improvement, but at the same time, he excelled in certain departments, and overall, he was one of the best rookie quarterbacks, right behind Dak Prescott. The defense in the beginning was great at forcing turnovers and just making the offense be able to operate in better field position, but as the season went along, there was spots such as the secondary that needed to be addressed. The injuries of Ron Brooks and the on and off injured reserve list of Leotis McKelvin forced the Eagles into a tough position as far as their quarterback depth. But Jalen Mills, a sixth-round pick out of LSU, stepped up really well to fill the role of a cornerback that can be relied upon against greater receivers. The linebacker core also struggled with injuries as the whole entire defense was injury-ridden. Because of the linebacker core production not being as great, Fletcher Cox also had to deal with double teams and triple teams, and he wasn't able to produce the same production as he usually would as a Pro Bowler. Benny Logan was also on and off the injured reserve list as he struggled with injuries throughout the season. But overall, the offense actually showed a lot of promise, except for the receivers. If it wasn't for the receivers, the Eagles' offense could have blossomed in many areas as they were moving down the field. But due to key drops from receivers such as Jordan Matthews, Nelson Aguilar, and Zach Ertz at times, there was many reasons as to why the offense could not move. The running back core was often very productive in their game. Ryan Matthews is productive when he's in, but however, he's injury-prone in his nature and always has been. Darren Sproles was a great point in the offense as he is a triple threat as far as returning, catching, and running the ball at all times. And there's also Wendell Smallwood, who was very similar to him in his nature, as they're both dual threats in their games. And overall, the Kenyon Barner also, as a return man, did a great job showing his promise.
Next off, we're going to go to the free agency and the draft picks for the Eagles.
This year, the Eagles had very many open holes that they need to address as far as the wide receiver core, as I mentioned, with drops. The secondary also, being as young as it is, needs to be addressed in the draft and free agency. Also, the offensive line, as it gets older, needs to be addressed due to the fact that there's a lack of depth. In free agency, the Eagles actually picked up one of the most targeted prized receivers there is in Ashlon Jeffrey. Ashlon Jeffrey played in Chicago, and he was a Pro Bowler at one point, and as a tall end zone threat, he really can be a good development for Carson Wentz. Torrey Smith also as a deep threat. He's a deep threat that the Eagles have not been able to have since the departure of Deshaun Jackson. The talent isn't there as much as Deshaun Jackson, but he still has elite speed that can be very beneficial to the development of Carson Wentz as a quarterback. They also got a new backup quarterback as Chase Daniel's production and just overall role wasn't as expected. They picked up and returned Nick Foles to Philadelphia, who's a personal favorite of mine due to what he did in his 1 year here. They also picked up someone on the offensive line as it was a weak spot in their offense by the name of Chance Warmack from the Tennessee Titans. Chance Warmack is a very big and strong offensive lineman that is sure to be able to help the run game and the pass game in the protection of Carson Wentz. Overall, in free agency, I believe that they did a great job, except for the fact that there was no cornerbacks picked up. If there was the addressing of a cornerback, such as the cornerback from Houston that was picked up, then there would have been a great change in the defense and the offense overall. But as there is the draft, they addressed that in the draft in a very sudden way. In the second round, they picked up Sidney Jones out of Oregon. He was coming off of an Achilles injury, and he still is recovering. But he is an elite first-round talent that had a lot of scouts vouching for him as he was approaching the draft. If he is fine after the injury and is able to recover in his same nature, then the Eagles got a steal in the second round, as he is a perennial first-round talent. They also addressed the defensive line in rushing the quarterback as they picked up Derek Barnett out of Tennessee. He broke Reggie White's single-season sack record at Tennessee, and he is a monster on the field. He is able to rush the quarterback, blow past his men as he is big, strong, and has a lot of speed for his size. And as far as wide receivers, as far as they already addressed in free agency, they picked up Matt Collins out of UNC, who is a great receiver. He showed a lot of promise. And Donnell Pumphrey as a running back. He's another dual threat type of guy, very speedy as far as Darren Sproles. It seems that Doug Peterson likes this role in the running back, someone that is a bruiser exactly, but can run the ball very well and shifty and is able to go out of the backfield and catch the ball on the screens. Overall, in the draft, the Eagles did a great job. Many scouts and many ESPN analysis personnel did a grading of their overall draft, and they gave it around a B- due to the fact that they addressed their weak spots in what they needed as far as cornerback, wide receiver, and running back for the future. And I think that the Eagles, from this moment forward, they have the tools in order to succeed and move on to the next step, as they are prepared just in the right direction, as in a tough division, actually, as far as the Giants, the Cowboys, and the Redskins, all teams who are run very well and are in the great direction towards the future.
Next off, we are going to move to predictions for the upcoming season.
So, predictions for this season, I believe that the Eagles are going to have a better season. In one of the toughest divisions in the league, the NFC East, they will struggle. But if they were in a weaker division such as the AFC South, I believe that they could excel in what they need and they would have the ability to win the division. Coming off a 7-9 season, they're all obviously looking for improvement as they're a young team that year by year wants to improve and then contend for a title eventually. Based on how the weapons that Carson Wentz is surrounded with will attract with him, you will see how the production will change. If the Eagles are able to thrive in their offense and their defense stays solid in their secondary, then I think that the Eagles are looking for a 10-6 season, or looking very positive towards the future. Not a playoff appearance due to the very competitive NFC East, but I think that they have the ability to nearly contend for a playoff spot this year, if not make it. That's all for the Eagles. Now we'll move on to the New York Giants. Personally, I'm an Eagles fan and he's a Giants fan, but I will ask him, what was your thoughts on last season and the production of the Giants?
Last season was a very pleasant surprise, honestly. They had a rather easy schedule, but the defense, major change from the year before, all backed behind breakout years from players like Landon Collins. Very outstanding year. One of the defensive players of the year. They also had amazing free agency pickups from the year before with Janoris Jenkins, Olivier Vernon, and Damon Harrison. They all did fantastic. Going off the offense, it was very shaky. They have a lot of tools to make the offense good, but the offensive line was a very major problem along with Eli Manning.
I actually have a question about the offense. Do you think that due to all the big signings and the big name players that they underperformed, or that there is any chance of being overrated by possible? Because I know for a fact that Odell Beckham Jr. struggled at times because he was triple covered in many situations due to the lack of, I guess, attention to other receivers in the offense. Do you think that is a coach's fault, or it's just a matter of not as good as they were said to be?
I'm not really sure. I think the major problem that they're having is the fact that their offensive line is brutal, and on top of that, Eli Manning can't be accurate. His time's gone. He's not a very good quarterback.
Do you think with a better offensive line that Eli would be able to possibly rekindle his talent from the past, and that the running game could pick up in the process of it due to the need for an offensive line?
I think that would definitely help, but at the same time, I also think that Eli Manning's not a very good quarterback. I think that all of his success was due to talent as in the wide receiver spots.
Okay. So since you said that Eli Manning possibly should be on his way out, and the draft often addresses the future, how do you think the Giants did within the draft in their pickups?
In the third round, they picked up Davis Webb, quarterback from Cal, who's a rather large guy. He's not very accurate, just like Eli Manning, but I think with time, he's going to be the person that will replace him. They also picked up Geno Smith from the Jets, which
Geno Smith.
It's Geno Smith, backup. But
As far as defense, which is already solidified, did they pick up any defensive prospects in the draft?
In the second round, they picked up Dalvin Tomlinson, a defensive tackle from Alabama, and he's a rather big dude as well, and I feel that he could have an impact.
Since we've covered most of the important picks, third round and second round, who did the Giants pick up in the first round to help their team?
First round, they picked up Evan Engram, the tight end from Ole Miss. What they needed was a tight end that could block, because that's been a major problem with blocking for Eli. And Engram is a smaller guy, more of a receiver type, so I don't really think that's what they were looking for, but it also does help with the weapons on the offense, along with Brandon Marshall, who they picked up in free agency, along with Sterling Shepard from last year and Odell. I think there's not a single reason that Eli should have a bad year next year.
Now, in the competitive NFC East, with all the acquisitions as far as free agency and within the draft, do you think that the Giants can repeat their success from last year, or will they improve upon it or get worse as far as this year upcoming?
I'm not really sure. I feel like it could be either really great or really bad, based off of the increases the teams have made to their team's skill over the offseason. The NFC East is a very tough division, probably, if not the best in the NFL, and it's gonna be tough, because if you have any weak point, will be exposed.
And as far as just the matchups between the Eagles and the Giants, the Eagles recently have had their their own way of how they would want the matchups to go. Do you think that the matchups this year will follow suit, or will there be a more competitive nature within the games?
I think that, well, as of last year, I would have thought that the Giants would lose both games, but they split both games, and this year I'm not really sure whether or not. I think they'll split, or the Giants will win both, but not sure.
Now, as we've covered all the bases as far as the Eagles and the Giants, we still have the Redskins and the Cowboys left. We won't do as full as a overrun of how their seasons have gone recently and their future for what's to come. But who do you think will win the NFC East this year?
I think it'll stick with the Cowboys, because their offense is just a powerhouse and their defense is pretty great. I'm thinking that the Redskins are going to finish last as well, because they have a pretty decent offense, but the defense is not very good. Josh Norman was way overrated than how he played last year.
I agree with that, but as we're almost out of time, sadly, we cannot go into Redskins and Cowboys as in-depth as we would like. We are also looking forward to the season and what is going to happen. The NFC East is very up for grabs as far as the teams and the talent that's there, and I guess we will see you in the future talking about the outcome of this year in the NFC East and hopefully your team winning. And thank you for watching this episode of The Dish.